This is Open Parley Live.
Hello and a warm welcome to Open Parley Live here on Open Parley. My name is Lynette Manzini. Thank you very much for joining us. In today's conversation, we look at the High Court judgment that was delivered on the 28th of February 2025. 3 years after members of the MDC approached the High Court with a prayer to nullify the 18 December 2022 Congress. Helping me to discuss this topic is Norest Marara. He is the former MDC-T Secretary for Projects and Business. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Lynette. Welcome, listeners and viewers.
And I would like to congratulate you 3 years later.
Indeed. Thank you so much.
I remember we're having a similar conversation, after you had approached the courts. And, people thought that, you were
bluffing.
Exactly. You were bluffing. And also it was a losing battle. But
Indeed.
3 years later, one, it says something about our courts. But for the benefit of our viewers, why did you approach the courts?
I approached the courts when the MDC, as led by President Mwonzora, violated the party constitution in terms of how an elective Congress is held. So just a quick overview of how an MDC Congress is held. You dissolve the existing structures of the wards, for example, and elect new ones. Those elected positions will then elect the ward congresses. Then the ward congresses will then elect the provincial congresses. The provincial congresses will then choose at a national elective congress the national leadership. From the president, the deputies, and all other national standing committee positions. They are now elected at a national congress, a national elective congress. So what happened at the party was that there were some shortcuts which were just too glaring. The nominations, which are normally supposed to happen at the provinces, were done inside the Harvest House by very questionable characters. We could pick quite a number of guys that were not supposed to be sitting in that meeting of the National Executive and National Council. And then immediately we were told that on the very particular day, the nominations for the president were going to happen there and there, using the old structures, which were supposed to have been dissolved and the new ones put in place. So I then walked out of the nomination process in protest. I went to court. That case is still pending to this day. It was the first court case. It's still pending before the High Court. No judgment came through. Then there were attempts to fire us, first suspend and then fire us from the party. Myself and the other 7 chairpersons and other leaders from the party. If you remember, eventually just by December, when Mr. Mwonzora was going for the actual Congress, we had the 6 provincial chairpersons who we had a press conference denouncing that the MDC cannot claim to be having a Congress of that nature, which was in blatant violation of the Constitution. So those chairpersons, myself included, and other leaders, were almost fired from the party by Mr. Mwonzora and his leadership. And we took him to court, first as an interdict to say, you don't have the power to fire us because we also don't recognize you as a leader because you did not have a proper Congress. So we won the interdict. This was the main case, which one we have won now, which was delivered in judgment on the 28th of February 2025. In that application, which was a declarator, we asked the court to nullify the 18 December 2022 Congress held by Mr. Mwonzora at the City Sports Center because it did not follow the party constitution in terms of how an elective Congress is held. So the court agreed with us that the Congress was null and void because it did not meet the basic requirements of the constitution of the MDC.
Okay.
Yes. And then in the prayer, we prayed that we needed to have another elective Congress held in line with the party constitution. So that was granted. So this is where we are today.
And now that you've brought this, our viewers up to speed,
yes,
the court judgment was given on the 28th, of February this year,
yes.
And it was visible. You were celebrating on X, formerly known as Twitter.
True.
But your president, you still recognize President Mwonzora as your president.
Indeed, after the judgment. After the court judgment, which nullified the 18 December to 28 February, 18 December 2022 to 28 February 2025, 3 years down the line. The thing now is we all revert back to our old positions. Because
before that Congress,
prior to that Congress, Mr. Mwonzora was the president. So he is indeed my president.
Okay.
Yes, he's deputized by Baba Engineer Mzuri. Then the other, we had 2 vice presidents. The other one was Madame Khupe, who has since joined the CCC. She's a sitting senator in the CCC representing Bulawayo. She cannot come back to MDC to participate in this. She left. We had Senator Komichi, who was the chairperson. Senator Komichi actually won another court case against Mr. Mwonzora. I think some few days ago. He was challenged by Mr. Mwonzora not to use the name MDC. So he went to court. He presented a constitution for his new party called MDC-T Congress. It's a new party with new colors. Purple is one of the colors. He presented before the court his national leadership. So Mr. Komichi won because the court was satisfied that Mr. Komichi had formed a whole new MDC different from the one that I belong to, or the one that is at Fort Nelson Mandela, led by President Mwonzora today.
So he cannot come back to this
as chairperson. Then we had the Honorable Tapiwa Mashakada is back from Secretary General to Treasurer General because he was Treasurer General prior to the August Congress, which was nullified. We have the Honorable Puranam Pariwa, who was now a second vice president under the nullified Congress. She goes back to Secretary General. Yuvonim Sarurwa was the youth chair. She comes back as the youth chair. I am back as the Secretary for Projects and Party Business.
Okay, so I shouldn't call you the former.
I mean, you didn't know, but I'm back as the Secretary for Projects and Party Business.
Okay.
Sure.
One of the things that you were praying for in this application was that another Congress is held. But after the judgment was handed down,
yes,
your president had a press conference.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he said that the judgment does not talk about redoing, holding another Congress.
That is not true. It could be a misinterpretation of the judgment, because I think at the end of the day, I've sought legal opinion on it from 3 different reputable legal minds. They are in agreement that it's very clear. I've shared with you the full judgment.
Yes.
If you go through it in our prayer, we prayed for another Congress. The one that year was nullified. So it is not true that the judgment does not direct that another Congress be held. It did so.
And if we're looking at 6 months down the line, it
Yes,
means it was handed down in February. We're looking at
28, yes.
March, April, May, June, July, August.
28 August.
We're looking at 28 August for holding this Congress.
Yes.
Have you and the others been able to meet? Because in the same press conference, President Mwonzora said he's open and he's willing to engage the individuals involved as long as they are members of the MDC or they want to rejoin the MDC.
Yes, indeed. I think you need to understand that when he had his presser, he was responding to a press conference by Engineer Mzuri, who announced that Mwonzora had been nullified by the courts, therefore he was no longer president, and him being the deputy was now the president. So that even in my respectful view, triggered Mr. Mwonzora to rush to the Supreme Court to appeal. So as we speak right now, there is an appeal which was lodged to the Supreme Court by Mr. Mwonzora to suspend the judgment. But
so which means you cannot be preparing for any Congress at the moment.
Until Mr. Mwonzora, I'm sure he is prepared to withdraw the appeal. He has indicated that he is prepared to withdraw. The challenge is that when the judgment came, you had two warring sides coming up with their own narratives, which I think were selfish narratives. As we speak, there are efforts to bring the parties together. So it's a process which I understand will take some time. But bearing in mind that we have a very limited period to hold the Congress. So I can safely tell you that there are efforts to bring the warring parties together. In fact, my appeal to both sides is that the MDC was not formed to be fighting legal battles. It was formed to rescue Zimbabweans from the mismanagement of ZANU-PF. So it will be so foolhardy for the leaders of the MDC on both sides to continue to argue in the courts when we have some serious national issues to attend to, when people are desperate for leadership in this country. So people are actually looking for Mr. Mwonzora, Engineer Mzuri, myself, and other leaders to show the leadership, and spending much of our time arguing in courts of law. It's not the business of the MDC or any political formation that is worth its salt.
But it's to rescue the people of Zimbabwe.
Yes.
To what extent do you think these court cases, even yours, and these disagreements, to what extent do you think that it has contributed to the demise, if I might say, of the MDC? Because this was a powerhouse, that had a lot of MPs in parliament representing people, not just in parliament for the sake of it, but really representing their constituents. But right now you have no one in council, no one in parliament. To what extent do you think that these disagreements are contributing to the, to the demise of this party?
Thank you, Lynette. And you capture it very well. The problem starts with the selfish and self-seeking leaders who do not have a people's agenda at heart. This problem started at the demise of former President Tsvangirai, and may his soul rest in peace. The party was supposed to go for an elective extraordinary Congress to replace the departed leader who had died. But the constitution was not followed, which then triggered a court case. You remember the Mashavira, which ended up in the Supreme Court. So we need to have strong institutions and not strong men or self-seeking strong men. The moment we have strong institutions, we can have safeguards to protect the organization. The MDC has got a very powerful and strong constitution, which is very clear on leadership change. If a leader is incapacitated, the leader is dead, there is a way of replacing that leader through an extraordinary Congress. That was not held. So that was the beginning. But to take you back before that, former President Tsvangirai had also made 2 illegal appointments of Honorable Chamisa, Advocate Chamisa, and Engineer Senator Mzuri as vice presidents. Those were not positions that were ratified by the party organs. So they were even deemed illegal by the Supreme Court judgment. You see, so this is the whole problem where we have leaders running away from the party constitution, seeking their own political power, and then creating problems. We end up fighting in courts. We even have the Chavangu issue, which I can put into context, to say had the CCC had a constitution and safeguards, Chavangu would never have, ZANU-PF would have used the other means to try and destroy the CCC. But probably the party would still be there with its leader as Nelson Chamisa. But because we ran away from having constitutions or outright disregarding our own constitutions, this creates fights and problems. We end up haggling in courts all the time, and it destroys the whole organization because people are fighting for personal power and control. Yes, so the court cases and the arguments have contributed immensely to the demise of the opposition in general, but the MDC in particular.
So the problem we're facing in the opposition, according to you, is that there are constitutions people are supposed to follow, but they don't. But they're doing this for selfish motives. And at the end of the day, the people become the biggest loser.
Absolutely.
So in case you're just joining us, you are tuned into Open Pali Live here on Open Pali. My name is Lynette Manzini. I'm joined by Norest Marara. He is the MDC-T Secretary for Projects and Business. He is one of the applicants who filed a high court application seeking to nullify the 18 December 2022 Congress. And that judgment was handed down on the 28th of February 2025, 3 years later. And the court has granted them that order. You talk about the elections.
Yes.
The Congress.
Yes.
That's a very huge project.
Yes, indeed.
Which requires resources.
Absolutely.
It also requires mobilizing people.
Indeed.
Don't you think that in a way people are demobilized, your members, and asking them to come back within 6 months to hold an election is not a true representation of, maybe the people's desires?
Thanks, Lynette. To the contrary, there is very much excitement with the judgment because people are saying we want to rebuild the party based on principle, based on following our own party rules. So there is quite a huge excitement out there for people to want to participate in the upcoming Congress whenever it's going to happen. But in terms of resources, yes, I cannot speak for the guys at the party right now because I haven't been there since this fight broke out. But I tell you that we went to court, we have won, and a Congress has been directed by the court. We have to follow this. So in terms of resources, they have to be found. It's actually a bridge that we must cross when we get there. But there may not be enough resources at the party, but they have to be found. And for those who want to seek office, you talk about mobilization. Those who want to seek for political office have to mobilize for their own resources. The party has never given candidates resources to come and seek for power. So those who want to seek for power, those who want to run for office, must look for their own resources. But the party has its own obligations to make sure this thing succeeds. So I think those resources can be mobilized so that this thing becomes a success.
Okay. And I don't know whether I asked this earlier on. Have you managed, because during the press conference, President Mwonzora highlighted that he was open to engage with the parties that had gone to court. Is this a process that has started or is going to happen? Because obviously you need to find each other for you to hold this Congress.
Thanks for asking such a very important question. I can safely tell you that the process has started. Safe to say that I can't share details with you, but there are discussions amongst the two formerly warring parties to talk. Mr. Mwonzora has sent his delegation to our leader, Mwonzora. He's our senior, of course. So
in the fight?
Yes, in the fight to restore the party. So we have had a delegation from the office, from the president, and there are engagements
that are happening. Yes. I want to talk about another prayer that you had in this application, and it spoke about the independent commission running your elections. Yes. I was listening in preparation to this conversation. I was listening to that press conference that was given by President Mwonzora, and he said that we are reverting to old structures, where he's still president, and he is responsible for Congress. So he was saying he does not agree with this judgment in regards to that independent commission. Yes.
No, actually that's not correct. Elections, including the extraordinary Congress, was held by an independent commission outside the party. This has always been the norm. All MDC Congresses are held by independent people who are tasked by the party, agreed by the party and the candidates who will be participating, especially at the higher level. So it's tradition that the elections must be run by an independent party, not internally, like what this nullified one, like how the nullified one was held. So it's very correct to say that we prayed for an independent commission because in the nullified one it was not there. So it's basically going back to tradition, to how things have always been done in line with our party constitution. Then in terms of the structures are nullified. The existing structures are nullified prior to going for Congress. So Congress is not the 2-3 days that you see where we then gather nationally.
It's a process.
It's a process which starts at the branches. So you have branch congresses. So if you are a branch chairman, for example, and you want to remain a branch chairman, your position is nullified and you seek re-election. When you win it or you lose it, the new guy becomes the Congress delegate. Then that the branch Congress that has been elected will then choose the ward Congress. The ward Congress will then choose the provincial Congress, and the provincial Congress will then go national, where all the Congress delegates from the branches to the top will elect. These are the people who then all the different layers are the ones that constitute the Congress delegates, and these are the people who then vote, who elect the national leadership on the day, the 2-3 days that you gather to make resolutions, to amend constitutions, to elect a president and other positions. That is the end of the Congress. Congress is not held in 2 days or 3 days.
3 days.
It may take 6 months while you electing the lower branches to the next layer until you finish, and then you go national to the final one where a president is chosen. And
you seem to be running out of time.
We are definitely, but if there is convergence in terms of, we have had 2 warring parties, and now that there's convergence that we must come together after this court judgment, when we eventually come together and we start working as a team with President Mwonzora, Vice President Mwonzora, and others, we revert to I will be in my portfolio as a secretary for whatever projects. We then start the process of forming the structures that will then be agreed by the whole organization to say this is our Congress delegates list. And when everything is set, people will go and choose their leaders. But if there is, to answer your question correctly of running out of time, the thing is, if all parties are in agreement that this is what we are now doing, we can then seek condonation from the court. Both parties' lawyers will just take the matter to the court to say, here we are back. We were fighting. It took us 3 months to come back together and have a common understanding. We are going to have our Congress, but we have lost 3 months. So can we have an extension? So the extension will be effective the day it's granted. That's when you start counting the extra time.
3 months, okay.
Yeah, because maybe you are left with 3 months. So you will be given an extra 3 months plus the 3 that are in existence, so that you are within your 6 months of holding the Congress.
I want us to take us back. As you were explaining, I was thinking, where were you when the Constitution was being violated? Like, why did you have to wait for this whole process, then go to the courts? Aren't there local internal mechanisms, that can be implemented to ensure that, the Constitution is adhered to?
Thank you, Lynette. So a political party works like a family setup where there's the father, the mother, and the children. So if you're one of the kids in the family and you are not happy with what your mom or what your dad is doing, you cannot, you can air your views, but they can be overridden. So
you can be expelled.
You can be expelled from the family. So this is how a political organization works. There is a president, and usually presidents have got absolute power. It may not appear like it's not absolute, but they have power.
I used to think that the Constitution was there
to vaccinate against.
Yes.
It is supposed to, but that's why it's even violated. Because then the politicians, and especially the presidents, normally surround themselves with yes people who will endorse everything that they want to do in violation of the rules. So this is why you see that in terms of the day-to-day running of a political organization, there's a lot of violations of the rules, and that's why people end up going to court, because your voice will be in the minority, or the majority are, they are planted, yes, men and women, because of the obvious benefits and the proximity to power. There's a lot of benefits that come with being close to leadership. So because people will be...
So that's a general situation, but focusing on your issue, did you manage to raise this complaint?
Yes. I'm one guy who speaks his mind openly in a meeting. I think that's the democracy that we all fight for. To say, if we are in a room of 100 people, everyone must have the freedom to air their views. There's no fighting. I'm just exercising my right to my ideas.
We must agree to disagree.
To disagree. But sometimes you are drowned by hired people. Like in our instance, holding nominations in Harvest House was not in line with the party constitution. Nominations are done at the provinces. You go to the provinces, and the provinces will then nominate the people that they want. But it was done in Harvest House. The meeting was not announced to all of us. At the time, we were tricked into believing that we were going to have a meeting to discuss a roadmap to the Congress. But when we got there, some councillors to the National Council had been bussed from Chitungwiza and Epworth. They had beer bought for them. So they were high on drugs, and they were disruptive, and there's nothing that you could do. I objected. I walked out. I told them, I'm going to fight this. And here we are. We fought, and I'm very happy that... the judgment was handed over. But in our favor. Yes.
Before we conclude this conversation.
Yes.
3 years waiting for the court, to hand down this judgment.
Yes.
What can you say about our court processes?
It validates the argument that our justice system is captured, is controlled by ZANU-PF.
So are you saying the delay, we're blaming it on ZANU-PF?
I'm not, I don't know what was happening behind the scenes, but our lawyers were busy pushing for this to be finalized, but it was never forthcoming. So to us, it actually came as a surprise. But what is very clear is that had we not won, probably this judgment would have come way earlier. So the fact that we had won it and it was sitting somewhere, someone was not doing his job, validates the argument that the ZANU-PF system controlled the judgments from behind the scenes. I'm not saying that, but there are people who think along those lines, and it makes that very sensible to say, why would a simple court case last 3 years in court and suddenly there it is, you know? So yes, there is need for judicial reform in this country.
So there are conversations happening behind the scenes. Engagement has begun between the two warring parties.
Former warring
parties.
Yes.
Will you be able to deliver, to bring back the MDC that we once knew, the MDC that could challenge, ZANU-PF, that would win elections, would have councillors and MPs? Because you also mentioned that some of the issues that happened before are affecting the life and the vibrancy of the party. Do you think that you holding this Congress, you coming back together, will take us back to those yesteryears?
Absolutely. I have no doubt in my mind that the MDC as an institution is not dead. Of course, it's been brought down in a very, very bad way. But if we are to agree on having a Congress, bring back everyone, have a leadership that is properly chosen in a free, fair, and credible process that inspires confidence to everybody. That's the starting point. Let that leadership go back to the default settings of the MDC, where it was formed in 1999. It had vibrancy. It was fighting ZANU-PF. The MDC of today is being accused of being a ZANU-PF light. So as long as the MDC, which comes out of, and its leadership, which comes out of a properly constituted Congress, free and fair, with a new leadership, be it Mr. Mwonzora or whoever it's gonna be, and the people support that, and it goes back to the default settings, I have no doubt in my mind that this party can bounce back in a very spectacular way. I want to quote Elon Musk, the businessman, not the politician. There is a quote by Musk in one of his autobiographies where he talks about a motor vehicle that he was launching called the Roadster in 2006. So this guy had so many problems, a lot of them, and most of his executives told them to abandon it because it was a failed product. That motor vehicle, the Roadster. I will share with you the autobiography of Elon Musk. But Musk, he had an idea, he had a vision. And he says, on item number 26 of his autobiography, Musk says, vision is being able to see things or to take something that everyone else has condemned and believe that you can raise it and make it work again. So Elon Musk was able to make changes to that car, the Tesla Roadster. He was able to fix it, and it became a very success story because he had a vision. You see? So people I know people would think I'm mad. Just like you thought I was bluffing when I said I'm gonna challenge this and I'll win this 3 years ago. But today, here we are. I had a conviction that the party constitution had not been followed. So any fair court would support our application to nullify it. And here we are, vindicated that we were doing the right thing, we were on the right path. So with lack of leadership in the country, no opposition, people are hungry for change. People are hungry for leadership. People are hungry for a political home that can deliver them out of
out of the quagmire there, and we will be following what's going on in the MDC,
Yes.
and hoping that, this Congress will actually come to fruition, and you bring back the MDC that we are used to,
Absolutely.
the old MDC.
Absolutely.
So President Mwonzora, during his press conference, highlighted that there were some members, while this judgment came in your favor, but some of the applicants were no longer members of the MDC and had even joined ZANU-PF. And he's saying he disagrees with this judgment because it's allowing people from another party to come and interfere with internal processes.
Thanks, Lynette. I think it's misinterpretation of the judgment primarily, but President Mwonzora knows very well that former Mashonaland West chairman Gift Konjana was the one who held a press conference, one of the six chairpersons who held a press conference to denounce the Congress just some days before he held it at the City Sports Center. We went to court and applied for this application together with former chairman Konjana. But along the way, he left for ZANU-PF, just like a lot of people left for ZANU-PF and other parties. And so the judgment came when the former chairman of March West, Gift Konjana, he had gone to ZANU-PF. He is the only one. ZANU-PF is not trying to sponsor its people to come and disrupt in MDC process. That is not true. The other thing is former chairman Komichi, who was a defendant in our application. We sued the party, the president, and its former chairperson, Morgen Komichi. Morgen Komichi has since formed his own party, MDC-T Congress, with purple colors. So Komichi cannot come back to this process of Congress and whatever discussions that are going through, because he has since left. Just like Konjana left, he can't come back to participate because he is now a member of ZANU-PF.
So you are telling us that you have never left the MDC? I
have fought very hard to remain, because at some stage the party wanted us to suspend and ultimately fire us. But we went to court, and this is one of the cases that we took to court to defend our position in the membership of the party. So I've always remained a party member. What I was not doing was to go and attend their business at Harvest House. We started boycotting them, and we're fighting from outside. But now that there is a judgment which is uniting us for purposes of rebuilding the party, I think all leaders must come back if they have the party at heart, and cast away their personal egos and quest for power, and start working for the people, for the party. And I'm very much convinced this party will come back. It will bounce back.
So on that note, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Lynette.
There you have it, viewers. That was Mr. No Rest Marara, the MDC Secretary for Projects and Business. And he was just walking us through the High Court application, the court judgment, and what happens next. What is happening next is that they're hoping to hold Congress in 6 months. And he is of the opinion that after holding this Congress and everything is smooth sailing, that the MDC that we once knew would be vibrant again. So until next time, my name is Lynette Manzini. Goodbye.
This is Open Parley Live.